Good evening, everyone. We will open the meeting up for the Planning Commission this Thursday, July the 11th at 6 o'clock. First order of business, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
First order of business is the approval of the minutes. Any corrections or changes? I found a few graphical words, but
If you want to.
Yeah.
do you want those? Okay. First off, it'd be really nice if they numbered these pages. So,
We don't do that.
so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 3, new business, A. It continues to say accessory dwelling unite. So twice is unite, and a garage build meets garage building, just very minor. And if you'd like this, I can give it to you. Okay, good. So is there a
Move that the minutes of the May 2nd, 2024 meeting be approved as amended.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will now go to the modification of the site plan request with Maryland Upper Chesapeake. So if the first person would please come and speak to that. Oh, I'm sorry. Good Lord. Sorry.
Been a while since
Just,
we had a
yes,
meeting.
yes, thank you,
It won't be like
thank you.
previous time. The Department of Planning and Community Development received a request for modification, which is attached to your package, for the site plan condition number 3 of the site plan approval dated December 15th, 2017. And that approval includes a review on the September 7th, 2017 meeting. So, but the final approval was December 15th. And that's for University of Maryland Upper Chesapeake Health, and they received that request on May 20th, 2024, or we did. The site plan condition requires installation of an 8-foot fence along the access road and associated parking from McPhail Road to Maryland Route 24 as per the attached exhibit that you have. The attached approval letter contains the exhibit dated 12/7/2017. The length of the required fence is shown on that exhibit and is approximately 2,210 feet. That's the one that was produced on the December 15th, I believe, approval. The University of Maryland is requesting, or University of Maryland Upper Chesapeake Health System is requesting a reduction in the length of the fence based upon the supplied request in Exhibit 1. Staff estimates the requested length of the fence to be approximately 550 feet. That's based on the exhibit. Assuming the fence follows the common property line with the Sullivan parcel, which is enumerated in the request, so there's 2 different lengths here. That is, we're measuring to be around 1,000 feet, so the applicant needs to explain that when they present. You know, which one are they looking for? The applicant must clarify the request again at the length of the, or for the length of the fence. Now, as far as staff goes, we would prefer no fence go through the floodplain. If the, and that's kind of what is described in that request, not on the exhibit, but in the narrative.
How much of the one they've approved goes through the floodplain now?
Not much of it. Most of it stays out of the floodplain. There are portions that go in it. But if you follow the property line of Sullivan, that's where it goes in the floodplain, because it's basically crossing the creek. University of Maryland.
The one we approved plus the one that's being, the request for revising, both of them.
If you base it on the narrative, it's following the property line, the common property line with Sullivan. That would be the one that goes through and over the creek. The one that was drawn on the night in the 2017
kind of does not really go over the creek. It just runs along the edge of the floodplain. So there's not much of the fence that does go in the floodplain. University of Maryland Upper Chesapeake is requesting reduction of the height of the fence. However, they're not showing, or they're not stating what that height would be, but it appears that the height, based on the pictures they're showing in the application, is 3.5 to 4 feet, so they need to clarify that. The history of this condition of approval relates to patients exiting the campus, typically the emergency room, and wandering on to adjacent properties. And in this case, the issue was coming from the owner of parcel 247. These elopements, as they are referred to, are infrequent and usually harmless. However, the Planning Commission was concerned in 2017 that a barrier be required for approval of any further expansion to the facility. This requirement is attached to the use and occupancy of the ambulatory surgical center located at the intersection of Tollgate and Marketplace Drive. And that would be required before they are granted their final use and occupancy. But there is a temporary use and occupancy that has been granted for both the cancer center and the surgical center. Staff is concerned with the implication of this condition as related to the existing floodplain of the property. Again, floating debris, whatnot, could be caught in that fence if it is in the floodplain. In addition, the height of the fence may be excessive considering the assessed potential risk to the public and the frequency of trespass. It is also the opinion of staff that the fence is needed in close proximity to what basically produces these trespasses, and that's the ER. So if it needs to be somewhat in close proximity to that, and that's something you need to decide how that would proceed. This would include the area, again, West McPhail Road, to the eastern corner of parcel 247. Parcel 247 does have an existing fence at the end of their parcel. Not in great shape, but there is an existing fence there. The approval was issued in 2017, was countersigned by the Upper Chesapeake Health System. It was not appealed at that time and therefore cannot be eliminated as a requirement of approval now. However, the Planning Commission does have the power to modify or clarify this condition based on the request of the owner or your own opinion. The Bel Air Police Department have been notified that they are here tonight. They also provided a list of incidents, or I don't know how you want to call them. I'll let the chief describe those. There are some terms in that list that I'm going to suggest the chief elaborate on. What is an EP? What are some of these other items, so that he can explain to you. EP is an emergency petition. How that works, I'd like to have the chief explain. Before that, though, we would defer to the applicant make a presentation.
Thank you and good evening, members of the commission, town officials, town representatives. Stephen Luch from Sneed, Luch and Helmlinger, PA. With me this evening from the hospital, Upper Chesapeake Hospital, is Phil Crocker and Colin Ward. Also Tori Pierce, our engineer from Fred Ward Associates, and of course Anna Ruiz, one of our legal assistants in our office, just in case our technology can't be solved by some of us older folks. Thank you for hearing us this evening. As Mr. Small indicated, we're here for the modification on the fence condition from 2017. We perceive that and have put a lot of study into it as a very lengthy, very expensive, and mostly unnecessary fence in light of what we're going to be able to provide with respect to natural buffers and our existing fence that was referred to on the subject property. The subject property, 1003 South Tollgate, was really the impetus of the 2017 condition. So that's why that property really is the focus of this evening. We're going to do a very brief PowerPoint with a few slides. These were done in 2017, and then Mr. Crocker is going to update the information in that PowerPoint with some information that was as recent as today. So, Mr. Small, if you don't mind, we'll go through. The first 3 pages simply are the 2017 approvals that initiated the condition for an 8-foot fence traversing the entire access road along the rear boundary of the hospital, which also adjoined a number of properties behind the hospital. The patient elopement.
Too fast on you, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're perfect. The patient elopement procedures, as you can see, are numerous, very specific. The hospital has taken things very seriously and worked with the town of police department in making sure that they are doing everything within their realm to create a very safe environment. And I guess at this point, Mr. Crocker, I would invite you up just to provide some additional detail on additional security measures to address the patient elopement. There are security teams in place. There's new security areas in place. There are dedicated staff. They have rearranged some of the rooms to make sure it is absolutely secure, and the entrance and egress. Mr. Crocker?
Thank you. Hi, Phil Crocker. So, oh, yes, 1826 Glenville Road, Darlington, Maryland. So, as you know, we've just finished a major renovation over the last number of years, and as part of that renovation, we totally realigned our emergency department waiting room and entrances, and how that patient flow occurs in that space. So, if you visited the emergency room, say 2 years ago, you know that it was fairly small and sort of crooked like a stick. And what we've done is we've totally realigned it to create really an arc. And what we've done at the top of that arc is we've placed a 24/7 security officer, and he's posted directly next to the main entrance into the emergency department. And from his posting, he's able to see completely down the ED left and right. And what we've done is
Can I interrupt you just for a second? Can you hear him? Okay.
Good.
I just want to make sure.
Oh, yeah. So what we've done is by placing him at the top of the arc, we've allowed him to really see either end of the emergency department, and we've really created an area where we have no, quote, hiding places. So a patient or a visitor can't really hide. They're always visible. The other thing we've done is we located our security command center right at the ED. So in that command center, we have a full-time operational flow of security officers that monitor our cameras 24/7. And we have what we call hot cameras. So we have these cameras in the ED that are always on the screen, and then other cameras throughout the campus come on depending on if they've been activated by movement or some other activity. The other thing we've done is we've increased our camera count. So as you might imagine, we have a lot of cameras throughout the campus, and what we did as part of this renovation is we added more cameras to give more cross viewing. So in other words, camera A is looking here and camera B is looking across the same image, so that we have a complete picture of the entire space. We've also added cameras inside of the emergency department, down hallways. As Steve mentioned, we've taken the rooms that we use for our patients that have been identified as having a behavioral health issue. We've just finished, we probably have another 2 weeks to finish. We've taken 4 rooms, and we've spent about $150,000 to redo the rooms, and we've relocated them. So now they're deeply embedded inside of the ED, and they're embedded right next to the main nurse's station. So the distance from a nurse to that room is the distance from myself to Kevin. And so that nurse's station has a view of those 4 rooms 24/7. A patient would have to walk past the nurse's station, and then they'd have to go through a set of doors that we've added. All of those rooms, the doors are always open, and depending on the risk assessment that's provided on the patient, they may be on a 1-to-1 sitter. So if they're a high suicide risk, for example, there'll be somebody sitting right there with them all the time. So those are really the gist of the major improvements we've tried to make over the last, year, year and a half as we've renovated that space.
It's clear that escapees would be observed, could well be observed. What do you have to do to actually stop them?
So so a couple things we can do. We have the ability for the security officer literally to step out. The distance from the security officer station to the center of the door coming in and out is about 5 feet. So he or she, because we do have both sexes helping in security, they would be able to step right into the pathway of the patient.
And you're
entering.
confident that that individual, and we don't need too many details, that that individual would have the capacity to be able to
Yes,
keep
yes.
that person from leaving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those all of our officers are trained to de-escalate patients throughout the entire hospital.
Got it.
So,
But-
oops, sorry. So these improvements that you've made just recently had nothing to do with the fence, is that correct?
No, these
You were
are-
going to do them anyway.
We were going to do these anyway. These are things that had to be done. You know, it's part of what we have to do, and as we evaluate what we're doing and trying to get to really move forward with best practices, you know, look at lessons learned. You know, things always change. You can always do things better.
Right.
So that was the whole impetus.
So it sounds as though since 6.5 years ago, you've made quite a few improvements.
We like to think
to
we
the
have, yes.
Security of the hospital and also the, doing what you can for the neighborhood.
Mhm.
Okay.
And how is this guard notified?
So one of the things we instituted as part of our developing the Aberdeen campus, and which you're aware of, we put in a private radio system. So we have 75 radios that our facilities team, our safety and accreditation team, and our security team are Motorola walkie-talkies, two-way radios. But that's a private radio system that we've implemented so these people are able to talk from the Aberdeen campus directly to our team in Bel Air. And likewise, the Bel Air team can talk to any one of those other 74 radios. So there's always constant communication.
That person observing that person in the room, and if this person would attempt to take. yeah.
Great, I understand your question. So we have what we call code blue and code green buttons, and they're on the wall. And if somebody pushes that button, a nurse or whoever, we call them sitters, it would be on a one-to-one. If they push that, it immediately goes to our switchboard, and there's a page throughout the entire campus. There's a code green. There's a code to designate that we have a security need. And bless you.
Excuse me.
That gets broadcasted out, and it also goes, and what we did is we located security and the switchboard right next to each other in the same room.
Thank God.
Bless you.
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's not you.
That's all right.
Sorry.
What we did is we located the switchboard and
Mhm.
the security in the same room right next to each other. So when the radio call, when the button is pushed, it immediately shows up on a monitor in at the switchboard, because the switchboard is sort of our hub. The switchboard immediately pushes a button and sends out a page, a code green, ED Bay 10, and they repeat it twice. And security is right there, so they're hearing the same broadcast, both by the switchboard and also through the overhead paging. And then they have the radio if they feel like they need to bring in additional support from elsewhere on the campus. Helpful?
Yes. It'll be especially helpful to see how things have progressed through the years since then. Okay. Do you have other members that you wish?
I have
to
one quick
speak?
question.
Sure.
Number 3, all patients are wandered
Wa-
prior
Wanded.
to? Okay. All right, I just want to make sure.
Somebody didn't use spell check back in
Thank you.
There's one other typo tonight, we'll see if you can find it.
They're wanted and then they wander.
That's right. We hope not. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank
We're going to
you.
invite Phil back up to talk about the linear feet of the fence that we are proposing to be built. Kevin, the next slide would just show, to the extent anyone's not familiar with the location of the Sullivan property, 1003 South Tollgate Road, to the south, mostly wooded. Cannot tell the structures, but they're in there. And then the hospital to the north, you can see the blue helipad. The emergency room doors are just to the northwest of the helipad, which we'll see in another slide. But you'll see how long that access road is from McPhail to the north, all the way out to 24. Again, which is extremely densely wooded with wetlands, streams, bamboo, ponds, thicket. We were out there this morning, just since some of the things that you're going to see in 2017, it's even more, it's just not traversable in our view. And then the next slide, Kevin, will show, again, just a little more close-up. None of the houses, none of the structures for the entire stretch of that rear access road can be seen from the access road. There's no walking paths, there's a hill, it's a steep slope. You'd have to go down a hill, part of which has a retaining wall that you would have to jump off of to get into the stream and the mud and the wetlands and the ponds and get through the bamboo and the thicket. Just not going to be the preferred method of anybody who actually wanted to take a walk to the rear of the property. That's the distance in yellow showing 600 feet from the pavement of the access road to the actual Sullivan house. Again, that was completed back in 17, as this property was really the subject of the fence issue back then. If you measure from the emergency department doors to the north, past the helipad to the Sullivan house, 836 feet through a buffer that is impassable. So this is a little walking tour. We're not going to put you through the whole thing, but this will give you an idea if you haven't driven the access road recently. Again, this was 6.5 years ago. Phil's going to have some updated photos today to share with you from this morning. It's even more overgrown significantly. What this doesn't do justice to is the drop off behind all the vegetation, all the trees, the wetlands below, there's streams. The thicket and brush is worse than it was then. And Upper Chesapeake actually, as a result of the 17 approval, installed a number of trees as well right along the Sullivan property. And they have flourished. They looked pretty impressive this morning. So that's going along the access road. There's some of the bamboo, which is,
What property is the bamboo located on? Or is it just here and there?
It really starts near the helipad and works its way east.
Okay, so it's everywhere.
it's everywhere. It's not going away either, I don't think.
Let me know if you want me to advance it.
Yeah,
Is that a yes?
that gives you a good idea
I
of the,
think that'd be good. Go ahead.
of the brush. Thank you.
Getting dizzy.
So let's talk about the length of the fence, because depending on whether the fence is installed behind the Sullivan property along the curb of the access road, we have estimated that to be about 500 feet. And I think, from the sounds of it, everyone, including town planning, is in agreement that we really need to avoid, if at all possible, the wetlands, the floodplain, for a whole bunch of reasons, which is one of the reasons I believe, Kevin, back in 17, between September and December, they said, let's modify that so that if you get a look at the wetlands there in blue, you've got ponds, streams, buffers associated with wetlands. There's a sewer line that runs back there with a sewer easement, which would include having to obtain permits from MDE, maybe the Army Corps of Engineers, 12 months, 8 to 12-month process to get permits to be in a wetland, to be in a floodplain. If you noticed, well, if we had let that walking tour play on the north side towards 24, there is some black wrought iron fence already installed along with a guardrail, because that's where the steepest slopes are. And that's right along the curb of the access road, which in our view makes the most sense, as opposed to going further in, where depending on how far you go into the Sullivan property, you may not even see the fence. You cannot see his existing fence today. but there is a fence back there. So in our view, we're proposing to double fence the Sullivan property with a new one, and then the existing one that is about 6 to 10 feet away from the road. Does that sound about right? Yeah. It's not too far. It's maybe two
think-
sections of fence at the
I
most.
think you've made a very good case, with the indulgence of my fellow commissioners, you've made a very good case that the 2017 requirement was an overkill then and now, and that since then, the property has grown less accessible to solve the problem that some of us didn't even think existed then. Maybe just tell us what you want to build in terms of how long of a fence, where you want to put it, keeping in mind the concern about the floodplain, and how tall you want it to be. Is that fair? Is that what we want?
I would also like to know, I'd also like to know, you know, this was approved at one time. Can you actually ignore that, negate it?
No. That's in our notes.
I don't think you can necessarily, for lack of a better term, retract the requirement. The reason being is that there was a compelling reason why, and it was public safety, was the finding. Now,
It was so compelling, the vote was 3-2. Sadly enough, I
yeah,
couldn't-
I
sadly
understand,
enough,
obviously,
I'm happy
in-
to have been one of the two, but we couldn't get one
in
more.
17, you know, obviously I wasn't here, but I did read the minutes to see what the public said, and that at the time, Chair Robb said, you know, I'm going to require the fence due to public safety issues, which is a compelling reason. I mean, that's a justifiable, compelling reason. I don't think, I think you would be opening yourself up to a potential objection by a neighboring property owner if you just, I guess, revoked that requirement. To scale it back, to say that the facts have changed, Kevin made an excellent argument that it needs to change based on compelling environmental factors that really weren't taken into consideration at the time. And Upper Chesapeake has sort of also made that argument. I think you have every right to modify it as little as you see fit to be able to satisfy public safety concerns, I think is where you're at.
That's
So-
where I want you to just tell us, here's what we want to do. We don't apparently have the legal capacity to just strike that
Correct.
provision 3. That was in
Yeah.
our notes that we couldn't do that. So in my mind, I'm just looking to, what do you guys want to do? Where do you want to place it, and how tall do you want it to be?
I would like to make a comment. I know that we can't ignore the fence condition, but can we modify it in terms of signage instead of fence?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Steve.
But Liz, I mean, in light of all the improvements that they've made,
Interesting.
you know, the fact that after Chief Moore has given his, I'm going to ask him a question, the same question I asked him 6.5 years ago. And at 6.5 years ago, I asked Chief Moore, in your opinion, is the fence necessary? Chief Moore felt the fence was not necessary.
Okay.
And so in light of those factors, and to continue, in my opinion, and Phil Robb's opinion, that Upper Chesapeake should continue to worry about this fence, I just think if we can modify it to a signage rather
Okay.
than putting fences up.
In sort of the respect of, like, no trespassing signs, kind of, is that what your thought is?
Sure, as, you
Okay.
know, as fearsome as you want to make them. It's, you know, no trespassing, you know, under penalty of law, whatever you want to do.
I believe if you guys make some sort of finding that you believe that a no trespassing sign would support the concern of public safety, you would probably be okay. in that regard. I did read the minutes, and the one thing that I kind of shook my head of is this concept of you are requiring the fence for a private use rather than a public use, which is incorrect.
Right.
So, because it was sort of like Mr. Sullivan sort of indicated, like, you're going to fence basically, the third world hemisphere, to stop people from coming on their property, which was ridiculous, 10 feet. So if Chief Moore, in his professional expertise, believes that no trespassing signs might deter it, that would be definitely a basis for you guys to make that finding.
Along with the improved surveillance.
Correct, and along with the-
security measures.
Correct. And obviously, given what Kevin's comments are, I would assume, but again, we don't assume anything, do we? That the Department of Planning and Community Development would say the signs probably promote the environmental concerns and help that.
Yes.
Because now you no longer have a fence to stop the floodplain and all that stuff.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
So can we skip to Chief Moore then?
Mhm.
Is that all right, Kevin?
It depends on whether you want to create a record for.
what would
Any
you like
potential.
to do, Steve?
Well, just to further that point, the one thing we haven't touched on, but it is part of the slideshow, which we do not need to get to, Upper Chesapeake has no reported incidents of actual trespass onto any of those adjoining properties, and for good reason. It's just not traversable. So to further the safety and security issue, the fence isn't necessary. Anyone that leaves the hospital is either going to stay on the grounds or go to a public road.
What-
They're not going to go down into a swamp.
And you have to also consider the fact of two things, which Kevin and I discussed. There is two types of, for lack of a better word, elopements, okay? You have a completely competent adult who says, thanks, but no thanks, I don't want your treatment. They have a right to walk out the door. There's nothing wrong with that. Then you've got your juveniles who can't consent, and you've got your police-inspired EPs who can't consent. So those people, they don't know what's going on one day or another. But if Kevin says, come on, Kevin, let's go to the ER, and Kevin says, no, he can walk out the door. And there's nothing anyone can do to stop him. So, it's the EPs, I think, is probably the highest concern, if any, to the planning commission, because you can't stop an adult from saying, I don't want to be treated here, So there's a thought.
All right,
Chief, what do you think?
yeah, please.
Can't hear you, Chief.
I'm in agreement with everything, especially my comments, I guess, 6 or 7 years ago. It is very, very thick back there. And you are correct most of the time, and I think you'll see from the report that we generated, people are going to take the route of least resistance, and they're going to be apprehended over a lot of times by the MVA.
Right.
Forrestal, they make phone calls and get people to pick them up. Many of them are actually apprehended on the grounds of the Upper Chesapeake facility because we have an excellent relationship with the security team there. And you're right, they do have a radio. We practice with them occasionally. We do drills. But many times, and I've gone through the list here, and this goes back all the way to 2005. But 15 of these 49 or 50 people were apprehended. 8 were apprehended around the toll gate area, 11 were out of the area, and 10 were not apprehended. But again, most of the time, they're not near that property that you're talking about. They go around McPhail to Tollgate Road, over that way to some of the other courts, Harvest Court, Footpath Court over that way. They follow Tollgate down if they're going the back way. But very few have been in that foliage, in that heavy vegetated area. Just for what you're talking about, they're going to avoid that. So yeah, I agree with you, and I think that I think signage would be better than nothing at all. I'm not going to say there haven't been one or two that we know that a couple have gone back there over the years since 2005, but ever since 2017, I don't recall any in that area that have tried to escape through that foliage. So,
And the other benefit really to the hospital and to the county and the citizens of the county, if we can avoid building that fence, which will well exceed 6 figures. It'd be an expensive, significantly expensive endeavor. That money can be put to much better use.
and as far as the vegetation back there, it's going to be overtaken by, what is that, Virginia creeper and all that other kind of
Yeah.
stuff? I mean, it's gonna be,
It would it would be a great idea if they could get rid of that bamboo. If you spend
Yeah.
all that money to do that.
That'll keep coming back, I think.
Well, who would, I mean, this suggestion, which is very valid in my opinion, who would police that to ensure that there are enough signs, that they're properly placed, and so forth?
In terms of the wording,
Mhm.
Chief could help with the wording.
yeah, mm-hmm.
Certainly. And then I guess Kevin and Chief can make a determination as to how many signs are appropriate in furthering goals of public safety.
Sure.
Because it sounds like the chief's on,
I'm
you
in
agree
agreement.
that that would
Yes.
support in goals
Yes,
of
ma'am.
public safety?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do.
So what we need then is a finding of fact that since 2017, the hospital has improved its security and, oh, here we have.
Good.
That's for the motion.
Did you write it up, Kevin?
On the fly.
On the fly.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, so. We have other questions?
No.
Boys, we have to have a finding of fact of what's different now in
Yes.
2017.
Yeah.
And then that we want to, it looks pretty simple to me, under site plan item 3, installation of appropriate no trespassing signs replaces installation of an 8-foot chain link fence along the property.
As approved by Bel Air Police.
Right.
Mhm.
Is that a motion?
Well, we need to, for the record, we need to enter this one that Kevin just handed me, which
You
is,
go
I'm
right
sure,
ahead.
way better than the one I was scribbling. All
That's
right.
the basis, that's the.
The finding of fact is based on potential environmental impact, based on improvements to security and surveillance made since 2017, based on the growth of the stream buffer and natural area located between the hospital campus and nearby residences. Signs will provide adequate prevention along the access road measured to address potential trespasses and passers onto adjacent areas. That's the finding of fact, and then we would amend the site plan to say, item 3, installation of appropriate no trespassing signs as directed by the chief of police.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you later.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye, Chief.
You may stay if you wish. We're going to go over a project status update, so if you would please exit quietly or join us. Thank you. Hmm? You have.
She has an update.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
I didn't know we could do it that way.
Yeah, that's
Well, Kevin's
Good
note
boy,
said-
Phil.
Kevin's note said you had to have, that we couldn't get rid of the condition, but we really didn't get rid of the
No,
condition.
we amended it.
Good job, Pete.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
And I'm sorry that I invited them to, I will not do that again.
what's that, oh, yeah.
Out of
Um,
order.
The most immediate project that is grabbing our attention right now is the Chabad. That was due to expire on the 27th of this month. And they have come in and are frantically going through the process to get the final plan done, the subdivision plan, which you signed. And they had really gone that and taken care of a lot of things, but they never did anything. It just sat there. And I think now we sent him an email saying, look, in another month, your approval is gonna expire. So that kind of woke them up, and now they're going to proceed. They need to get a building permit by the 27th of July, or they're starting over.
Sounds-
Nothing more we have to do, it'll be the 27th.
Right, nothing more you have to do. If they meet the 27th, they're in good shape to proceed. That's one item. Upper Chesapeake, I just gave them a long list of stuff that they need to do. One of the things is that they agreed to restripe the McPhail Road. Thank you. Restripe McPhail Road so that it did not have any parking on it anymore. And it would also contain bike lanes both ways. That will do a huge amount to the visibility along that road and make it a much safer road. So that's something they're required to do before they get their final UNO.
Where will those employees park? Is that
They have enough parking on site to, they actually calculated that 7 years ago when they started building all these different, eventually the next step they're gonna have to do is build a garage. You know, if they build another building or they expand again, they're parking in a garage. So that's Upper Chesapeake. Let's see, Hickory Flats, basically the same place they were before. They have basically addressed everything but applied for a building permit. So they applied for it, but they haven't received it because they still have to pay quite a bit in hookup fees, substantial amount. So that's kind of there. Taco Bell has come through several times and wanted to proceed, but the problem there is that they've never come in with revised elevations. And you folks may remember that the elevations for their proposed unit, they wanted to do the prototype, they didn't want to make any changes. And that's just not what's in the approval. And so that is still sitting there. They have not received their final, and they have not received an approved architectural elevations.
It should look at least as good as the Taco Bell on Route 40 in Glasgow.
Oh, absolutely. We passed that yesterday, didn't we, huh?
It's a nice building, it's all brick all the way around, it looks like certainly three sides of it are.
Well, and they came back with brick. What they were supposed to do, though, is they volunteered, if I recall, to do a mural on the back side facing the entrance. And I said, look, you have to come through, get in front of the Cultural Arts Commission and get that approved. They just haven't done it. So that's that. 109 East Churchville, with the decision from the Supreme Court the other day, that is free to move forward. One of the things that this in our code, that if any project is prevented from proceeding due to litigation, then the approval period does not start. So they have 2 years before they would be required to. Yeah, it's kind of, I think it was, I want to say RBC, Royal Bank of Canada.
Royal Bach,
Yeah.
Canada.
So that's basically, it's not really a bank as much as it is an office building. Yeah, so it's a nice looking building. So I think that, once we send them a letter, then they'll know that they have,
And
their
speaking
time
of
clock
nice
has started.
looking building, just to confirm, the Habab, they're going back to their original building.
Yeah, I
Not
should have
the
made that
thing
clear. They're not going back to the
Initially
double wide that
Yeah,
they were
right.
wanting to put in. So that's something that I'm glad about, because I thought that their architecture was pretty nice, what was originally approved. Wellwood Assisted Living has not received their final site plan approval. They've come in several times to get this or that, but maybe it's financing, I'm not really sure.
Weren't they hung up at SHA getting access out on 924?
They were.
Okay.
They
I
were.
just heard that.
I can't
like,
imagine that it's still being hung up, but it may still be.
Yeah.
State highway takes a while. Raising Cane's has everything they need. They likely will get their building permit in a matter of weeks. So it took them a while to understand that they're in the East Coast now, and that there are requirements that towns and cities and counties required that maybe weren't required in the Midwest because we're a little bit more pain. So they were able to go through all that, and they have everything that we're happy with. So they got their final plan approval, just needed to get their building permit. Standard on bond is what you will see in a month. They had their approval, but they have not submitted any final plan. They are coming in to swap out an existing floor that is residential, not existing floor, proposed floor that is residential, and convert it to office. That does, in staff's view, create some problems with parking, problems that they're gonna have to solve. And to be honest, we have not gotten to the point where we've read some of their submissions, so maybe their traffic person has come up with some great ideas, I don't know. But they're, I would assume, proposing to share parking, even more parking. Right now, yeah, I think you had approved 16 spaces to be shared. This would be an additional 17 on top of that.
How many parking units would be left there?
I cannot recall. I think there was 30 on 3 floors, so I assume there's 20 left. Again, we haven't had a chance to go through the submission.
Office would require more parking than.
Yes.
Mhm.
But it's different parking. It's parking at different times. They're gonna have to show that the parking between the office and the residential can share without having any problems. And I don't think, and it's something you'll have to look at, can you share a space that is stacked? I don't think you can. If you have stacked spaces, that can't be shared with somebody else.
No.
So, there's some issues we have. You looked like you were about ready to ask a question. Nope, you're good, okay.
We expect them next month?
Yes,
We have an August meeting then.
right. And which is my next question before I get to the last one, is, you cannot make it?
No, I won't be here, won't be in the country.
August 1st, the first day of August.
Yeah, I leave the next day.
Ah.
I will be here.
You're headed out the door. All right, I'll reach out to Jimmy and to Don, and you'll let us know.
Well, if it's gonna be, I'll play.
Okay.
How about the other guy?
Jimmy?
No, the alternate.
Oh, Dan, if there's somebody else, we'll let him know. 'Cause, so if you can't make it, Dan
can't
Gray will
make
be invited, yes.
Okay.
Well, but if the prime piece of business is gonna be an amendment of a project we've already approved, is that appropriate for an alternate anyway?
Liz and I were talking about that, which is a little bit different from tonight. Tonight, you were looking at an existing approval and trying to modify the condition associated with that. So Mr. Hines could not participate in that discussion.
I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So next month, they have an approval, but they're looking for a revised approval, meaning they're in a way somewhat starting over again, at least for the site plan. And we don't see that preventing Mr. Hines from participating or Mr. Gray. Is that-
No, yeah, I don't see an issue. There's also a really good record in Standard on Bond. We have that written opinion that was very detailed, what your reasoning behind the approvals were.
It's got things to work out, it would just seem so much easier if you just came in September.
Yeah. He wants to submit for building permit.
I think he's supposed to be demoing that church, middle of the month, I think. I don't know if you got a demo permit yet.
Because the
Not
church
that I
has
know of.
moved to their new
Yeah,
site now.
yeah, so,
I know that was a suggestion from from staff saying that he might want to wait a little longer, but he doesn't want to.
Project. I think we just tell them that the planning commission is on vacation in August. What do you think?
Yeah,
Lois, you got a big trip overseas the next day, right? Denver? Well, that's on most of it. I mean, I know there's, have a full complement.
yeah.
Well,
It's an
yeah,
important project.
it is.
I would move that there be no meeting in August.
Second.
Can you do that to someone?
August is a month that everybody takes vacations. And right now, you're looking at reducing from 5 down to 3, and then, huh?
I'm hoping we get 3.
Well, I'm hoping you
Yeah.
get 3, but also, the 3 that would be there would be ones who had seen this before. And then the 2 additional, one has never seen it, and the other one also had never seen it. The other 2 have not seen this application.
We have the power to not meet.
I'd have to check your rules, but I think you guys can choose. I mean, we have to have a quorum in order to.
We don't have a quorum. I'll be
You
out of
weren't
town.
able to be.
I'm out of the country.
I'm now planning on being out of town, which I can be all the time. Come back to-
And I should get a good night's sleep before I leave the next morning.
I have no idea about Don's availability. I mean, it's
Uh,
an important project.
It is.
Okay, Liz and I will get together. I
Yeah.
think, to be honest, I think you as the chair have the ability to decide what the agenda is and when to meet. So,
Well, the consensus seems to be to wait. I mean, why would you-
well, I think there's also the ability to explore other days in
Yeah.
August, and if we don't have those other days in August, then it'll go to September.
So he is coming before us in August, wants to come before us in August to present a new scenario, which.
Almost everything is the same. They're just wanting to bring in office in place of residential, and then just say that everything is shared parking.
So wouldn't there be the advantage of seeing it in August and saying, well, this is not gonna function unless you do something, build a parking lot or whatever?
Well, it
Would there be
is.
an advantage to doing it in August and then having him come back in September? Or-
You could.
You
or
could
wait?
table it, tell us to do another written opinion.
It's hard to do that before they've actually presented.
Yeah,
So,
Tell them we don't have a quorum. We're taking a month off. We've been pretty busy with last year, including with him.
this is what I'll do.
Gives
We'll,
him time, he's got some, apparently some significant parking issues to work out there. It might be a better, project than the one we approved. That's great if it is.
I just don't know if it would be helpful to him moving forward if he already sees these are still.
well, I thought there's nothing magical about the first. You could meet on whatever date
Yeah.
you feel is necessary. The first actually has 5, August has 5 Thursdays. So you could meet the next Thursday. What is that, the 8th?
yeah, that sounds right.
This is in August.
Okay. Right, it used to be that way, that Planning Commission took August off.
I just don't want to be detrimental to someone who can move forward with a project.
Sure.
I just don't want to hang them up. But if you think that doesn't matter.
He'll be better off before you. He's got issues to work out that he hasn't resolved yet, right?
Well, it's your determination as to whether he has issues.
Only a couple of weeks away. Well, you got parking issues.
Those are what he needs to prove to the Planning Commission that additional shared parking is okay. And to be honest, I have not read anything on the submission. I'm just looking at the additional requirement and wondering how that's gonna work.
Did he submit a report from Mark Keeley?
Yes,
He did, so there is a report in this, okay, in
Yeah.
his submission, okay. I was just
not only
curious.
that, but when you change from residential to office, you're now changing the traffic study.
Oh, yeah, that's right,
You've got more trips.
yeah.
I don't know how those are working, but basically, typically residential is going to be, well, I would assume he would have more trips.
Yeah, he's gonna have more.
So I tell you what, we will huddle and get back to you on what your desires are because one of the things is Don's not here. If he can't make it, I think
We're
we
done,
are
yeah.
done.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to make the majority of the board the 2 with
The
all
two
due
people who
respect,
weren't
the
there.
two people that weren't there, even though, they could justifiably vote on it, I think, so based on the request, but I just don't want to just kind of dump that case on them with that kind of a history. You guys have the knowledge of the history of that project, you know what I mean, where they don't.
Right.
So, I mean, I just think that's the prudent
Okay.
way.
To be determined, we'll see what Don's availability is, and we'll go from there. Last one is Hartford Mall. They're proceeding, they have a lot of moving parts, especially as it goes to sewer, obtaining sewer. So that's something that they're proceeding with. So I don't see anything coming through the door on them for a while.
Mhm. I heard it was a couple offers, but they weren't even remotely close to the 2 million that was being sought at the auction as the starting bid. So, that's all I heard, yeah.
We did inform the auctioneer that the town has some issues. They have left some things hanging out there that they need to correct. And especially, they have, they received from you the ability to do outdoor dining on the roof of the building. Well, they never submitted a final plan for that. So, and what they've been doing is allowing people to occupy that based on temporary use requirements of COVID. And that has been extended year after year after year, so they can still use it, but once that allowance goes away, then they're gonna have to finalize that plan. Now, it's not much, it's basically them having their engineer just submit a plan to us that meets code. So. Well, we'll reach out to Don and then we'll get back to everybody. Well, it is. And I know that before I got here, August was kind of off limits. It was really kind of. And I left it open because I just wasn't sure. Sometimes people take vacation, sometimes they don't. Coordinating.
Yeah, Kevin, let the cat out of the bag, though. I was just going to let you guys know, obviously, officially, that on July 9th, I was notified that the Supreme Court of Maryland had issued its opinion in the town of Bel Air versus Barton Boat. The town was successful in its appeal, and for your purposes, ordinance number 80922 is in effect as of May 23rd, 2022. That is your comprehensive rezoning ordinance from 2022. Correct. Yes. And Kevin kind of pointed it out, out of all of the rezonings that were subject to that ordinance, the one that was of high concern, I think, to Kevin and I was our MDP 109 East Churchville Road. They came before you in September of 2022, and then again in March of 2023, and obtained Planning Commission approval for a 7,000 square foot, 2-story office building across from the firehouse, and that's the RBC. The problem with that, and Kevin and I had multiple conversations, his staff report reflected it. I wrote directly to the developer. I contacted his attorney, Brad Stover, and because I wanted to make it absolutely clear that he was moving at his own risk. So if his zoning fell through, for whatever reason, your approval would fall too. So, because that approval was based on his B2A zoning classification. So he is being notified, as Kevin had sort of indicated, him and I are working on a letter now, to let him know he's going to go out first, because he hasn't moved forward or done anything that I'm aware of, right, Kevin? I'm not misstating that?
No.
Okay. They've just been kind of chilling, I think. And I did talk to Brad about him jumping in, and he said, you know, he just kind of wanted to see what happened and sat back. And, you know, and I kind of said, well, you know, that's fine, but I'm not advocating for property rights. I'm advocating for the town. So he understood that. So that is done. There's a couple minor matters that need to be addressed with the commissioners in closed session, which we'll handle on Monday at the town hall meeting. I've requested a closed session. And that's it. So 80922 is finalized. It's done. Yes. Yes, that was the only one. And throughout the entire process, you know, he was constantly in the back of my mind, because not that I don't know the man. It just, you know, he went through. His neck was on the line, because, you know, if depending on how that ended, it could end very badly for him. Because what would you say he was RO?
He was RO before, and he was rezoned to B2A.
Yeah, I mean, that's a drastic change, you know, so he's kind of banking on that B2A. So just wanted to let you know that is finished. I am requesting the court to make a minor modification to the opinion, because there's a reference, like, we don't have it East Broadway Street. So there's a little bit of a typo, so I'm just going to ask them to fix that, which they probably will, so. East Broadway Street, like, that's the name of it. It's East Broadway. Yeah. 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 I looked at it and went, where is this at? I thought I knew my facts better than that. Thank you. It was definitely a team effort, and Kevin was very helpful in giving me historical background, and you know, we absolutely, you know, thrilled with the outcome. You know, you couldn't have guessed a better written, more concise opinion that is entirely in favor of the town. So we're excited.